one of the things I wish people taught us in school was problem solving. And I know that sounds like a really general idea and not specific, but I'm going to use the strength and conditioning as an example here to help you guys understand how we as people sometimes really stink at problem solving. And I think strength and conditioning is a beautiful example of such. So when it comes to training, there are Newtonian forces at play, things that are inarguable physical truth, such as if you want to run fast, you have to produce more force in a certain direction relative to your body weight in order to go there. Laws of motion apply. So in simple terms, strength conditioning and lifting weights and training for performance for an athlete is all about two things. Well, it's actually about one thing, kind of. It's about producing as much force as possible in a specific movement. And you can kind of do that through two methods. Either you can have more skill or more total force producing potential. More skill just means you're using a larger percentage of your force producing potential. You're not actually making your muscle stronger or your nervous system work better. You're just using more of what you have. The other option is actually building your force producing potential, so lifting weights, changing the actual physical makeup of your body. So there's no debate. Those are like the two only things that really exist. The debate comes down to what is the best means and methods to produce force in sport. What are the best means and methods to produce better outputs from them practicing better skills, I should say, that in turn produce better outputs. Like what are the best training methods to help you apply force better versus maybe build potential. So skill, building potential. So far, pretty straightforward. Now this is where we just kind of, for some reason, stop and we just don't even use anecdotal observation, let alone research, more times than not, as we go forward. We say, okay, cool. Get stronger, that means lift more weight. Not really true. Because again, when you get stronger at a squat versus stronger at a deadlift versus stronger at a hang clean, these are all kind of different muscles being used in different ways. It's not very specific. From a problem solving standpoint, we have a very specific problem, but a very vague solution. And those two typically don't really line up that well. If we have a very specific problem, there's going to be a specific subset of well-defined solutions. And again, it comes back to the fact our initial problem itself isn't well-defined. People just say strength. They don't ask what strength is. Can you define strength? And so when you start to define strength and you say, well, strength is the ability to produce force at certain velocities under a certain type of contractions. So when I hit the ground, we might have a rapid stretch loading on the muscles. When we start to define what strength is in our context, and then you can understand why a barbell deadlift, a sprint, and rowing on a boat are all different types of strengths. So far, so good. So we don't really often dive into that in terms of our strength conditioning problem solving attributes. We just kind of assume what strength is and we move forward, and in turn we get very vague, nebulous solutions. We just have these outputs, or these efforts I should say, that aren't very well defined. And this same thought process applies to numerous different areas in life. Whether you're trying to decide whether you want to buy a house or you want to start a garden, having some definition of your problem is really important. Then also defining your solution is really important as well. And so what often happens is if you have a poorly defined problem, you don't have the complete set of information to define that problem. An easy way to think about it is like you're putting puzzle pieces together. Eventually, at a certain point, when you put enough puzzle pieces together, you can kind of make out the picture of the puzzle. But if you don't have enough puzzle pieces, you don't have enough information, you don't really have what the end product is going to look like. You don't have enough information. And so your first stages of problem solving might actually be acquiring more information. As a strength coach, you might say, I don't really understand what aspects go into my physiological potential. So you might go to school or read books about what those aspects are, muscle fiber types, your nervous system, and so on. And so you just have to define that. And then maybe you define I'm trying to understand how I get faster at sprinting. So you understand sprinting, collect more information. And as you collect that information, you're going to have to weigh that information like a scale and decide which ones are more important. I'm going to go start a garden, but maybe I want to, what kind of garden? Because the kind of garden depends on how big it's going to be, how much sunlight it's going to get, how much rain or water I'm going to have to water it. Then I have to understand do I have something to pour garden water spout thing? Do I have the barrier to keep the rabbits out? You start to define things and you start to figure out the information. And some of that information, you might need to go to Home Depot and figure out which kind of wood you need to put around as a barrier that's not going to crack and break over the sun and heat. It's going to, morph it in the same way. You might need to go figure out which machines and weight training modalities you want to acquire to help target specific muscles. Again, it's a problem-solving process. It's not a dogmatic belief process. What happens is, in strength conditioning, we don't always have a huge gathering of information, and so we have like part of the puzzle, and then we just insert our own biased opinions and beliefs in there, and then we hold on to it, because if we find anything that erodes that puzzle because our beliefs are incorrect but the information is true, then that's a reflection sometimes of ourselves, or we make it feel like it's a reflection of ourselves. In doing so, we make our training methods part of our own identity, because we have some facts and then the rest is filled in with our beliefs and our opinions. And if you're like, hey, I want to talk to you about your methods, what kind of facts do you have or evidence do you have? And you're like, well, I have some evidence here, but the rest of my opinion. If I don't agree with you, then I'm not disagreeing with the facts, I'm disagreeing with your opinion. So people get really frustrated and upset. Now, this same thing applies across life and the rest of society. It's really important for understanding other people, because when you encounter other people and you want to relate to other people and discuss with them, to understand what facts they have, but also which kind of facts they have are more like their beliefs or their opinions. And if you want to understand someone's perspective, you should understand not just the facts they operate with, but the beliefs surrounding some of those facts and those opinions, and also how they weigh those facts. Because again, imagine we have the same subset of facts. You have a list of 20 facts, and I have a list of 20 facts, and just because they're information, they're correct, and they're evidence, the way you synthesize that evidence, the way I synthesize that evidence, I might put value in certain areas more so than you would put value in other areas. And so we might have the same bits of information, the total same access to information, but totally different interpretations of it. And so we want to understand someone else. It's understanding how they weigh those factors and those variables and why they do that. And ultimately, we have the human emotional side of this, and that's always important and exists and will always be present. And so we have to understand maybe part of that interpretation is based on their own personal experiences, their own observations, some emotional aspects to it as well. And then you can start to have a discussion to, break down what they mean, why they mean it, and how you can learn from that. But that's a whole form of problem solving. Because again, at the end of the day, it's about problem solving, whether it's strength conditioning or interpersonal relationships with individuals, or even trying to plant a garden. It's totally about problem solving, understanding the information available, what information are you lacking is really important, how you're going to acquire that information, what information do you have has really strong support, which information is just your own personal opinion. And then when you discuss with other people is how to remove yourself from the things that are your own personal opinion, so you don't feel personally attacked when you discuss these kind of things. So I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you guys enjoy the analogies here and some of the examples, tying in strength conditioning with the rest of life and so on. So I hope to make more of these videos. I appreciate you guys as always. Thanks for listening. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share.